Hello and welcome to another tutorial video from RC Empire. Today I have a free modification tip for you that for me has instantly improved this little truck and made it so much more capable. And again, if you like this video, please subscribe for more. First, as always, I will demonstrate the issue. So if we take a look at the suspension, and I'll try to demonstrate this as best as possible, you can see on the rear how jagged and jerky the movement is compared to the front. The metal shaft of a shock absorber should always be parallel with the shock body, or the plastic bit as it is here, allowing smooth and full movement of the suspension at any angle. But, as you can see here, this is not the case. In fact, the plastic bit locks so tight into place, it physically stops the metal shaft moving fully up and down, and you lose suspension travel and articulation. And this happens even with the car on the ground or in action. This is as opposed to the front, which is completely smooth, and the plastic body of the shock is allowed to move freely and always stays parallel with the metal shafts, and so the axles move freely and fully. Now this happens because the ball joint where the plastic body of the suspension is held onto the roll cage is so tight it doesn't let the suspension move freely, and as I mentioned, it almost locks the axles in place. You can see here how tight they are. These should be moving freely at any angle. So again, this is the front moving nice and free with minimal force from my fingers. And this is the back, jerky and difficult to move. You can see the balls locking and you can even hear it kind of snagging. And again the front, which is nice and smooth. Again, another little comparison, not that the car would ever move like this. Okay, so let's begin by removing the shocks and I will show you how to free up the suspension. First, you want to start by removing the top part of the shocks. And to remove this, you need to take off this little nut here to expose the screw. And this screw right here is the component that we will want, because on the other side of this screw you have the ball which fits into the socket of the plastic part of the suspension. You just want to work it out. You might need to give it a little bit of a tap or do it how you like, but you will need to completely remove this ball joint. Careful not to damage the threads whilst you're doing it. Once you have it out, you will want to get a fine file and gently rub the circumference of the ball over the file, making sure that you rotate the ball whilst you're filing it. And this is very important because you do not want to get any flat spots on the ball. So give it a few passes, making sure that you've covered 360 degrees around the ball, and I will show you a close-up of the angle you want to file at and what the final surface of the ball should look like later on in this video. But the idea is to take a very fine layer of metal off the outer edge of the ball, giving it an ever so slightly smaller diameter by a few micrometers. Now, after you are done with the file, you want to get a piece of very fine wet and dry paper, and basically you want to use this step to smooth down the ball to reduce any friction you would have when the ball is back in the socket. This is 1200 grit paper, but you might need something a bit finer, say around 2000. Now, you need to smooth down the ball Firstly, to let it move freer, but also you don't want to have a rough surface on the ball to wear out the inside of the plastic socket. And again, make sure you rotate the ball whilst you're sanding it down to avoid any flat spots. Now, I'm not doing it very well here, and it looks a bit awkward because I'm trying to do it around a tripod, but you get the idea. It really doesn't take a lot of sanding at all. So, once you're happy with it, you want to pop the ball back into the socket. You can see instantly that it moves a lot freer and a lot more smooth. If we quickly compare this to the other one, which hasn't been modified on the other side, and again to do this, you need to remove the nut and slowly remove the screw with the ball on the end. You can see that this is a lot tighter and really quite difficult to move and rotate in the socket. Now, one thing I did try was to put a little dab of oil or grease inside the socket, but this did nothing. And you can't really remove material from the inside of the plastic socket either. So your only option is to sand down the outside of the ball. Here again you can see a comparison between the one we have already modified and the one which came from the factory. Obviously the one we've modified is a lot smoother. So again, take the ball as before and give it a few passes over the file, making sure you continuously rotate it as you are moving it along the file. This is real time and I haven't sped it up, and that's all you need to do. You don't want to do it a lot. So this is the angle you want the ball to be at while sanding and filing. File along here and a bit above and below the center line. And this, hopefully you can see it, is the kind of surface you should have once you are finished. And try to get this as smooth as possible. Once you are done, like with the other side, you want to pop the ball back into the socket and you are done. You can see just how freely it moves now compared to before. Make sure you do not take off too much material from the ball, because then it will be likely to keep popping out the socket. And this ball and socket interface is all that's holding the shocks to the upper part of the body, or the roll cage. All that's left to do now is to fit everything back together, and we'll take a look at how everything moves, fully modded, and how it compares to before. And you can see if we zoom in, just how free the plastic bits move. Before they were locking, you could hardly move them. And again, no locking at all. And you're getting smooth movement with minimal force twisting the axles. That's the back. You can see that all the joints move freely. There's no jerky movement anymore. The metal shafts are actually staying parallel with the plastic sleeves because the sleeve is free to move. And you're getting full and free articulation throughout the length of the shocks with no locking. So that's it for this little modification. It's a quick and free little tip, and I hope it helps improve your crawler. I will be back very shortly with a very special video featuring this truck, so stay tuned for that. So please rate, comment and subscribe down below. I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.